welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Asmara Mitchell, and this is the Queenie for President YouTube channel. Stay tuned for more videos on hot topics, personal issues, story times, vlogs, and much more. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about something that I've explored on my TikTok channel. My daughter and we recently made a video about how to interact with your children. During the video, I learned so much in a short space of time about what my role is in not only my daughter's life, but in the people around me, the community that I'm building. I realized that because I have a very laid-back attitude to parenting, but also I'm very strict at the same time, that combination is something that I've learned to strike a balance with. And I think some of my techniques and tips can really help others moving forward in their relationships with their children. One thing that I think is really important, in fact, the most important parenting tip and parenting role is as an educator and as the person who is the primary source of education and the primary teacher about what career paths and life choices should be made going forward. So today's video is going to be a bit more on that. How did I encourage my daughter to want to stay in school, first of all, want to achieve her best grades that she can achieve in spite of adversities, disabilities, and other challenges? How can I teach you as parents and viewers the best thing that you could be doing with your children? I made mention in my previous videos that I used to homeschool my daughter. I did it for roughly 3-4 years, and after that there was the COVID period when everybody was homeschooling. It's been a massive boom, and I think they've said it's increased in the last few years according to UK government statistics. I highly recommend it if you have the resources, and even if you don't, if you can make a strong solid plan, especially in the early years education, how to homeschool and things that you want to teach your children, I think it can be brilliant. So I wouldn't tell you to do it, and I don't want you to quote me because every family is different. But if you, again, have the resources and it's something you want to do, please look into it. Please watch homeschooling videos on YouTube. Have a look on government websites about the steps you're supposed to take. And you can even talk to your children's head teachers about the reasons that you're thinking about homeschooling, and you can get all the support that you and lastly, on homeschooling, there are tons and tons of networks on Facebook. Obviously, make sure you do your due diligence, make sure they're safe and, you know, registered and well-known people. And there are lots and lots of families who are all connecting outside of the school environment to teach their children. So please go for it. Okay, so let's get into the video. I grew up in an environment where education wasn't always the first instinct for us as growing up. It's really tough for me to say this because I'm speaking on behalf of lots of people who, quite frankly, I don't know their individual stories. I'm going off of what I've heard them say and how I've heard them behave in public. And I guess for every 50 children that I ever was introduced to or spent time with personally, I feel like it was probably only 4 or 5 of them that actually were so focused on their education that they self-schooled themselves towards the end of secondary school for their GCSE preparation for their GCSEs, helps themselves out of situations where perhaps they were not doing so well. And I think what I saw in those 4 or 5 people at 50 is something clicked. Something clicked in their minds, and they would often have the same conversations with me, or very similar ones. They want a future. They know that education is going to get them where they want to go. And some of them had faced either some adversity which let them know it's sink or swim. If you don't make it in this life, or you don't make it in your career or in your education, you might end up in a really bad situation. And for others, it came from their parents. So for those who it came from their parents, I feel like their parents were either working towards their goals in education and employment, or were very strong on teaching their children to revise at home. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. If you are those types of parents that are bang on it and your kids are coming in after school, um, they got their books out on the table, they're revising for the recommended 2 to 3 hours a day. Congratulations, big congratulations to you, congratulations to your children. But what I want to recognize today is those parents who haven't quite got there yet with their kids, and maybe after school they're at a little bit of a loss as to how to get their children to sit at that table, study, and not become distracted by everything else. So I know one of the biggest factors is poverty. A lot of people do not have the money to fund their education. And that's how I say so loosely because it doesn't make sense in the context. Fund your education. Well, your education is free. But in this sense, education needs so much more. You need to be able to buy your children the books and the pens and the pencils and all the little things that inspire them to want to sit down and study, and keep them excited and keep them engaged. You need to be able to feed your children. Gosh, the amount of kids that go home at night don't have enough to eat and therefore cannot concentrate. And you need to also have some form of determination yourself because your children cannot do it alone. What I was talking to my daughter about today was your GCSEs are not just about you. Uh, and this goes for any exams at any age. Our children are going to be studying all the way, hopefully, through to their masters and even further education. And even at the age I'm at now, I still take short courses on whether it's mental health, children, counselling, whatever I can do to boost my knowledge on modern understanding of things. So I said to her, your education and your GCSE results is a reflection of your teachers, the people around you, the friends you've made, your classroom environment, and your home life. If you don't do well in your GCSEs or you don't do as expected or as you expected, it's not just your fault. It wouldn't just be your fault. It would be mine as well. So I've taken that responsibility and I let her know today, everything you're doing is a reflection of the life that you have at home. So I owe it to you to teach you everything and give you all the tools that it's going to take for you to get to where you need to go. And I feel like the distinction and the blur, which are obviously two opposite things, happens in those early years. You go to school, you go home, you hang out with your friends. Nobody ever talks to you about your education other than to tell you you haven't done your homework. Oh, there you go again, not focusing, not getting the high results. I guess you're just one of those kids. That's something I've seen a lot. And very early on, you're accepted as somebody who doesn't understand school, is not gelling with school, doesn't fit in. But what about the other kids that I told you about earlier? Some of them were not doing so well in the beginning. Some of them caught onto the learning bug. That distinction is the tools. If you are not born with that innate understanding of how to get on with your studies and sit down and read and you don't want to do it, how do you change your nature? How do you encourage your kids to want to read books and want to learn things they don't understand? It's a mystery. It's an absolute mystery. And I'm telling you, one thing that I've come on here to say today is it's an everyday learning curve. I can never judge somebody who says, I don't even like reading. I've never even read a book. I have barely read books in my whole adult life. How am I going to care if my kids come in from school and they don't read? They'll make it. They'll make something of their life. They're good at art, but there are so many resources. There are so many resources. If you can't afford the books, you need to be searching online. And I think a lot of us are scared to go out there and really just take that deep dive. It's a big ocean of education, but start somewhere. So what I said to my daughter today, and as a homeschooler, I've had to use multiple techniques to keep her engaged. But today I took out her notebook and I said to her, let's look at every single subject and let's think of words that remind us of each subject. So, for instance, when we spoke about English literature and the up-and-coming exams, she said, oh, Inspector Calls, Shakespeare. Those were the immediate things that came to her mind, and we just jotted it down. And if you start there, you have an idea of what your children feel for each subject that they're learning. You might have a good starting block there. If your kid says, maths, I hate maths, okay, I'm going to write that down. I know that. So I'm going to go back to Google and I'm going to type in what to do with a child who hates maths. You might think of something. I got lucky for a short time. I took my daughter to a maths tutor, and that changed her outlook completely. She wasn't the worst math student, but she literally jumped 2 levels, as in, no, she was in the foundation set and she went all the way to higher from doing tutoring for about a year. So if you have the means to tutor them for 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, just to give them that alternative perspective, do that. Take that money out of your pocket and make that sacrifice, eat beans on toast for a month, and give your child that opportunity, especially in the subjects that they don't like. That's my first recommendation. When I didn't have the extra funds to send her to tutor, I mean, we don't always have the money. You do need to be making those Google searches. You do need to then break the subject down, take maths, ask them for a list of each topic within. So that might be algebra, graphs, shapes. Take each of the subjects, write them down, and you need to start engaging with your child at that point. So which of these subjects is the hardest for you? Which is the easiest? That again gives you another starting block, somewhere to work from. Well, okay, I don't have the resources to teach you everything, but I might be able to find a video on YouTube and sit down with you and learn this with you, sit with you at the table, and actually, if I don't understand it, we can learn it together. You know, parenting is a daily chore, it's a daily job, it's something that not everybody expected. You know, we might have come from great households where our parents gave us brilliant understanding of what parenting was, so we had a blueprint mapped out. That's brilliant, but for some of us who are literally starting out with just us and our children, we have to be so careful. We have to start very slowly, and we have to take those steps, the slow steps, to working out what works for us. So what I'm saying to you are just tips of things I've done. I want to do a whole thing on homeschooling and how the main thing, which is strange, I would say, is paper, loads of paper. If you can acquire a good couple of wads of massive A4 pieces of paper and lots of pens, you will see your child go from one child to another, because everything that they talk about, you just get them to write it down. And the more they see themselves on paper, the more they read back what they're doing, the more they reflect the year later, and they've got all of that in front of them. It's such a good mind opener and helps them to gain the momentum. So if you don't have anything for your children, and say they are in the middle of secondary school and you think it's a bit late to be doing colouring in and drawing, I don't have much money to go and get the AQA books, by the way, you've got WH Smith and other bookstores, but you can be looking online because a lot of the used copies are pennies. So please do look for those used copies. And do be asking the school if they have extra books and stuff for your kids to work from. But a lot of the time, if you have a bit of an aversion to school, sometimes those books are intimidating. So start with pens and paper. They don't have to colour in. You can get them just to draw words. You can get them to copy things out. So one thing I used to do, occasionally if we found a really good text, like the BBC Bite Size, and there was something that I felt she struggled with, I would just get her to write it down. Just copy the text and then talk to me about it afterwards. So it's not all about techniques that are surefire and this is what the teacher does at school, so this is how I'm going to do it. You can mold your learning to your child and aim high, because another thing I did at homeschooling was encourage my child to prepare for the 11 plus exam. We didn't go for the 11 plus exam because in the end with the COVID situation, it became difficult to navigate that, and trying to get into a private school. Our nearest private school from our home was hours away, so it became a bit of a challenge. And some of the local private schools, have very high thresholds for entry, and I didn't want to pressure her, but I did manage to acquire a few 11 plus books, bought her loads of resources for the children who are studying in private schools, and that set her up for something much, much better. And by the time she was in year 7, although she was homeschooled, a lot of people are a bit weary. They think, oh, a homeschooled child is never going to be at the same level with children who have been studying every day in schools. Well, she was ahead of a lot of children, and in a lot of the higher sets. And I'm not saying that to boast, I'm saying that as encouragement to other parents, that where you're waiting for the teachers in the schools to help your kids, or waiting for them to click and to catch the bug, you can infect them with the learning bug. But you just have to be a little bit crafty and use your devices to your advantage. And something that another schooling parent told me they do with their children, which they found useful, was to play videos of really, really like in-depth topics on YouTube. So, you've got like 2-hour history videos, and no pressure to listen. You're sitting there playing with your toys, do what you want, because it's all about unlearning. So we're not doing everything in the school way. And they found that their children were picking up facts and had fun with knowledge, to the point where teaching them was natural. It was fun for them to be learning. They thought learning was part of every day. It wasn't a chore. It wasn't something to be scared of. Um, and I encourage every single person I know to take up a little course. If you're facing unemployment at the moment, you're not in a very or I want to say low skilled job, because low skilled means to me that you're not having to use intellect on a daily basis to work. Maybe you're just doing manual skills. Take up short courses which help to refresh your mind. Um, you can get a lot of those on the Learn Direct websites and stuff. You've got £12 courses. You can gain expertise in serious fields. And when your children see you doing that, they love it. They love watching their parents educate themselves, because they see it as a duty. And that's an example I try to set. You can buy courses for £5 on voucher and things like that. Your kids will definitely think, well, mum's telling me about deadlines. And that's if you're unemployed. And at the time I was working on a business, I wasn't in working in an office setting or anything. So my daughter was actively seeing me at work every day from home, and she absolutely loved it. And she joined in, and she has ideas. They you can talk to them about your education as well. They love to see those types of things. As I said, I'm giving this video not just at parents who have got it right. Congratulations again to people who have aced it. Your kids are well on the right path to building their careers. It's just, I have met so many people who, one, they are adults and they're not inspired by education, and therefore they do not inspire their children, and they are often looked at badly for that. But there is a lot of good reason why they behave like that towards education, and I would love to change that perception. And it's two, the children themselves, they don't engage with schools for different reasons, and again, they don't click with the idea of seeing the value of educating themselves and how that matches your dreams in the future. A lot of kids that I have interacted with want to be footballers, want to be dancers, and I say to them, that's brilliant, that is amazing, but what else did you say you wanted to do? Because you're not just going to think to stick to football is the only thing you're capable of. You can do anything. You could be a rocket scientist who's brilliant at playing football. Because if you aren't picked for certain things that seem like a quick fix and seem like easy money, then what are you going to do? Your brain needs to still be one of the strongest and greatest minds in your country, so you can be chosen to do anything. And that's very inspirational language, but positive language is brilliant and it's helpful. Again, that's what I'm saying. I'm gearing the video to people who have been discouraged because they don't have the mindset to want it to be in education or to be in work. You can do it, and it is small steps. And I just I don't want to talk about people who live a life on this and live a life like that. And I just think that's so sad that we don't have a duty to people who who have lifestyles we don't approve of. We feel we don't have a duty to help them. Like, ridicule is so last century. So yeah, I just wanted to share quickly my education tips. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Um, and yeah, get started with making some notes. Share them to me. Let me know what your kids are struggling with, what they're talking about, what they're saying is so hard. And I'll see if I can come up with some brilliant resources to share with you guys, something to sit and read at bedtime, because we've already set the limits on the phones. So we know they're not on the apps and on YouTube all day. We know that we're keeping it varied. And my daughter's posted about some of the apps, education apps, which are really easy. So you can check out her stuff. I'll put the link in the description. And we're now talking about figuring out in our heads what we find difficult in school in particular for the children, and how to start to tackle that so we can want education to work for us, and we can be working with teachers to actually get the best out of schooling. Um, and best of luck to anyone watching this who's about to take any exams. And this is encouragement. If you haven't started revising yet and you're thinking about, it's not worth it, I'm not going to do well, I checked on Google, it said 3 to 4 hours of study is better than nothing. So even if you only ever sat down for 3 hours or 4 hours and did some reading and tried to get your head around topics, it's better than nothing. So please, please, please don't tell yourself to keep scrolling and go and do gaming. Have a read of something. BBC Bite Size or Gizmo is the app for revision, and be encouraged. Okay, best of luck with that. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, share this to somebody you think needs to see this, and let me know how it all goes. We're pushing our kids all 2025, we're pushing ourselves all 2025, so best of luck. Bye bye.